Hello, I'm Jin, and this is the rundown of Inarius and Lilith, two characters in Diablo with fates intertwined. Here we go. Inarius was once a proud member of the High Heavens, an advisor to their governing body, the Angelus Council, and a believer in the angelic plan to create a universe of perfect order, ridding it of demonic corruption. He stood strong and faithful in his cause for thousands of years, before that faith began to waver. He questioned everything they had fought for over the millennia, witnessing countless horrific acts of brutality enacted not only on and by his fellow angels, but by the demonic legions as well. Inarius grew tired and weary, unrest growing within him. He had to take action, to make a change, to get out of the endless struggle and conflict. He was sure he could not be alone in these thoughts, yet his duty never stopped. And Inarius led his fellow angels into battle, as he had done countless times before. But this time, something was different. His thoughts were clouded, his heart swaying from the ultimate goal of heavenly purity, and he found himself struck down. The demonic threat had gotten the better of him, and he lay wounded, his vision darkened. His angels were routed, or worse, as he passed out on the bloody battlefield. He awakened some time later, groggy and chained. His mind betrayed him, as he began to rant and rave about the war and how pointless it all was, wanting to be free of the conflict that had been his entire life. His captor was intrigued by the Archangel, deciding he could be to her benefit. She revealed her name to him, Lilith, the daughter of hatred. She had suffered at the hands of her father and too grew disillusioned with the eternal conflict, biding her time, waiting for her chance at rebellion. She saw this angel as that chance. With a promise that they would meet again, she released Inarius, who became the first angel to look into the heart of a demon. He was stunned and captivated by her. He needed to know more. Over time, he continued to consult with Lilith, who realized Inarius was in love with her, his desire for her overflowing. They envisioned a future for themselves as they grew closer and closer, with like-minded individuals joining their cause. Lilith had a plan, and told Inarius that they could liberate the World Stone in order to create a world outside of the eternal conflict, where they could be together in a place they would call their own, free from the prying eyes of heaven and hell. Inarius set the plan in motion as he and his forces battled through the Pandemonium fortress where the World Stone was held. He used misdirection where he could, avoiding unnecessary fighting with the fortress guards. The first steps of their plan were successful, and they found themselves within the Worldstone chamber, where Inarius altered its alignment, shifting it into a pocket dimension, whilst also tying its power to himself, unbeknownst to his followers. This act enhanced his powers unimaginably, and the shift hid the Worldstone from all angels and demons not aligned with himself and Lilith. Inarius, Lilith, and their followers were now free, and they ruled their new world, Sanctuary. They had children known as Nephilim, innately more powerful than angel and demon, with uncharted potential. Lilith saw these Nephilim as the future and a means of ending the eternal conflict forever. Yet some of those under her and Inarius feared their power, sparking debate between the members of Sanctuary's ruling council, some taking the side of the Nephilim and others wanting their extinction. Lilith was maddened by this prospect and flew into a frenzied blood rage. Seeing red, she morphed into a horrific new form and hunted both angel and demon alike, murdering them all ruthlessly. Inarius, in horror, brought her to heel, but could not bring himself to kill Lilith. He vowed he never would, nor let anyone else do so. Instead, he banished her to the void for all eternity. he was left with fragments of a once hope-filled dream, inhabiting a world with the race he had grown to despise. He attuned the Worldstone to diminish the Nephilim powers over the generations, which would bring about the birth of humanity. Over time, the strongest of the great evils, known as the Prime Evils, were made aware of Sanctuary due to humans with arcane abilities summoning demons into their world, and the Prime Evil Mephisto sent his son Lucion to form a religion on Sanctuary, calling it the Triune, with the intention to sway humanity to their side, planning to use them to tip the scales of the eternal conflict in their favor. Inarius still watched over his world and caught wind of the Prime's actions, forming his own faith to combat theirs, naming it the Cathedral of Light. Lilith, however, had found her way back from the Void, the seal used by Inarius not nearly strong enough to suppress her in the darkness. The war of subterfuge between the two religions and the distraction it caused for those involved helped Lilith make her move unnoticed. She gained access to the Worldstone, weaving a spell, allowing humanity's latent Nephilim powers to once again flourish before going into hiding. Decades passed, and the War of Faith continued. Inarius's Cathedral of Light grew in power and status, as did the Triune. Lilith chose this time to strike. Disguised as a noblewoman, she revealed herself to a man named Odyssean and imprinted him with her gift, rapidly advancing his path to Nephilim powers. Her plan? To dissolve the balance of power between the religions and destroy both with the power of the Nephilim. Initially, this plan was successful, as Odyssean's powers grew in spectacular fashion and followers flocked to him. He in turn helped them grow their own powers and named his force the Adiram. They saw the religions as a threat to Sanctuary and followed the Triune to the source, destroying their bases of power and even ridding them of their grand priest, Lucion, Odyssean wishing him away with a thought. Throughout Kyrgyzstan, the Triune fell apart, and the Adiram marched on their grand temple. At some point, Odyssean had found out Lilith was not the noblewoman she claimed to be, and she realized she had lost control of the situation. She attempted to take Lucion's place as head of the Triune, using their forces combined with her own demons to stop Odyssean's progress. Odyssean and the Adiram cut through her forces, and the former found her in the temple, disguised as a priestess. This did not fool Odyssean, and he collapsed the temple on her, before leaving with his forces, heading to the Cathedral of Light. In truth, Inarius had arrived and hidden Lilith's presence from Odyssean, shocking her but upholding his vow. He claimed his last design was flawed, and this time she would not escape the Void, compressing her into a sphere, banishing his former lover for a second time. Odyssean and the Adiram continued their crusade, cutting a path through the Cathedral of Light, their armies and inquisitors no match for the might of the Nephilim. They arrived at the Grand Temple, where Inarius descended from his tower, using his overwhelming presence in an attempt to turn the Adiram to his side. Odyssean sensed this and rallied his men, causing the Archangel to engage him in hand-to-hand combat. The battle between them caused ripples of energy to flow throughout the universe, and these ripples did not go unnoticed by heaven and hell, who immediately sprang into action. The sky tore in two as the angelic host descended upon Sanctuary, as demons burst from the ground in an eruption of chaos and flame. Odyssean and Inarius continued to exchange blows, but a three-way battle between his Adiram, angel, and demon distracted the Nephilim for a moment, and Inarius, with his sole focus on destroying Odyssean, used this chance to grab him, ready to strike a final blow. Before he could, he sensed an immense energy being infused within Odyssean. He was altering the Worldstone, severing its bond with Inarius, weakening the Archangel immensely, before easily defeating and imprisoning him. Odyssean now turned his attention to the angels and demons, focusing his energy and unleashing the entirety of his power, forcing them back to their respective realms. His actions and the power he possessed, though, was ripping Sanctuary apart, causing him to withdraw his energies one last time, unleashing them again to reset the Worldstone and repress the Nephilim powers once more, saving his world from destruction at the cost of his own life. The Angiras Council arrived in the aftermath, taking custody of the still imprisoned Inarius. They voted on what would happen to the young world, and in the end, Sanctuary was saved, with the Council believing in the light humans possessed, and the potential of it to surpass even their own. Mephisto arrived then, and offered to leave Sanctuary untouched. In return, he would ask for Inarius. Imperius of the Angiras Council agreed to this immediately, turning the rogue angel over, as he would have been imprisoned in heaven for eternity in response to his crimes. The angels then departed, as did Mephisto, bringing his prisoner with him to the burning hells. Inarius was bound with gigantic chains and tortured by the Lord of Hatred, distorting his features, slowly tearing the wings from his back, keeping him in a chamber of mirrors with his eyelids ripped off, forced to gaze upon his grotesque, misshapen form for all time, not being granted the freedom of death. For 3,000 years, Inarius endured this torture at the hands of Hell, until their powers were weakened, ironically, by the Nephilim. Inarius claimed to have escaped from Hell, seemingly finding a way to unshackle himself before returning to Sanctuary, finding it bleak and broken, as the actions of angels and demons had left it in a state of chaos and despair. It was now Inarius decided to abandon Sanctuary, to find a way home to the high heavens, deciding the first steps would be to reform his Cathedral of Light. Lilith too had returned to Sanctuary, summoned by a macabre ritual performed by a triune follower named Elias, along with two unwitting adventurers, their blood forming a construct which Lilith took form and passed through. Her presence initiated a new wave of cultists and worshippers knowing her as the mother of Sanctuary, and she darkened many mortal hearts. She began a bloody campaign to retake the world she helped create, bringing humanity under her control in an attempt to lead it to her version of salvation. Inarius, during this time, learned of a prophecy regarding a battle in Hell, a spear of light piercing the heart of hatred. He believed this prophecy to be about him, and crafted a new plan, finding a way to enter Hell and achieve victory, thinking this would grant him return to heaven. His followers too believed they would be given passage to heaven if their father Inarius ascended. Inarius visited his son, Rathma, discerning he had a key to enter Hell, and Inarius tried to collect. Rathma refused him, and Inarius, enraged, killed his son, thrusting his own spear through his heart, but even still could not find the key. As news of Lilith spread throughout the land, a wanderer who was forced to consume some of Lilith's petals approached Inarius within his temple on the peak of a mountain, asking for his blessing in order to pursue Lilith. The angel turned his back on the human, deeming their race weak and unworthy before dismissing them. Elsewhere, Lilith found her way to the Temple of the Firstborn, where Inarius had been previously, and collected the key from her dead son's staff, vowing his sacrifice would not be in vain. The next step in her plan was to find a demon named Astaroth, which she did, and released him from his soulstone, giving him a mortal host, in return for safe passage to the Cathedral of Hatred in Hell. Inarius caught wind of these actions, following in Lilith's footsteps with his followers from the Cathedral of Light, the army he had formed, marching into Lilith's domain as Inarius hovered above them. Lilith's demons charged, and were easily dispatched once in range of the Pale Knight's mighty spears, and Inarius spotted her in the distance. The Archangel flew towards her, landing within the horde of demons, before throwing his spear at Lilith. A massive demon intercepted the projectile, catching the spear in its flesh, as Lilith retreated to her nearby citadel. The hulking mass was no match for Inarius, and he slayed it brutally, along with a horde of lesser demons, before retrieving his spear and following Lilith into the citadel. His former lover taunted him from the shadows as he walked through the dark corridors cautiously. She sensed a renewed purpose from him, questioning his actions and what he was truly after. Inarius bluntly and coldly stated that his rightful place was in the heavens. Lilith questioned once again, asking if this is why he seeked to destroy what they created, causing Inarius to lash out, deeming their creations abominations, and Lilith broke his spear in two with her wing, asking if the heavens rejoiced after he killed their son, knowing they hadn't, and stating the heavens no longer wanted him. The battle raged on outside, and Inarius charged Lilith, thrusting toward her abdomen with the shaft of his broken spear. She allowed it to impale her, his spear of light piercing through hatred. Lilith grasped his hand, which still clutched his spear, reminding him that they made a choice, and it could not be forgiven. Silence would remain heaven's judgment. Inarius denied this, turning his back on Lilith, looking to the skies, asking if he had not done enough, claiming he had made it right, pleading for an answer from his kin, as Lilith slowly removed the shaft from her abdomen and approached Inarius from behind, the angels still pleading for guidance from above. Lilith showed no mercy, driving the spear into Inarius's back, impaling him through the heart, as he had done to their son, as she stated, "The heavens do not speak to you anymore." The angel let out a wailing cry, asking for heaven's protection, to no avail, as the Mother of Sanctuary ripped off his wings, telling him he belonged in hell. Inarius screamed and wailed in pain and terror, his cries echoing throughout the chasm, his essence exploding in immense light, cracking the inside of the citadel as rays shone outward onto the battle still raging. All that was left of the once mighty Archangel were his glowing, melted remains. Inarius's death broke the will of his army, and they were overwhelmed, swarmed by demons and routed, or worse. Lilith continued her plan, heading to the Cathedral of Hatred. Astaroth appeared once more, confronting Lilith, and she demanded that he uphold his part of the bargain to grant her safe passage. Astaroth complied, imparting his gift to her, allowing her to face her father's essence, stating we all return home in the end. Lilith found the Wanderer then, watching her through an artifact known as the Sightless Eye, not for the first time. She trapped them there in their own mind, where she stated she could keep them forever, but offered a different fate. A chance to be Sanctuary's greatest protector, explaining they could turn the tide of the eternal conflict, and revealing her plan to them. She offered her hand to the Wanderer and implored them to fight for Sanctuary, to make the right choice. Mephisto appeared then, having aided the Wanderer in the form of a wolf throughout their journey. He offered an escape from the dream. When asked why, he stated one day they would be enemies, but needed each other's help in the present to defeat Lilith, which was all he currently desired. The Wanderer accepted this and looked Mephisto in the eye, breaking out of the dream and continuing with their comrades to the Cathedral of Hatred. Lilith continued her plan to ultimately reject both heaven and hell, becoming the sole ruler of Sanctuary and planned to absorb the prime evils, their essence still reforming after the release from the Black Soulstone. She would start with her father, Mephisto. Once completing this step, she would use the power to stop the prime evils from ever reforming and use her presence on Sanctuary to strengthen humanity, forcing the death of the weak, aiming to use the survivors in her army, reigniting their Nephilim powers, ridding herself of both heaven and hell. This plan was cut short as the Wanderer and company followed in her footsteps, rescuing survivors of the Cathedral of Light on the way to the Cathedral of Hatred. A companion of the Wanderer trapped Mephisto's essence in a soulstone. She took the stone with her out of Lilith's realm as the Mother of Sanctuary appeared to confront the Wanderer. They battled fiercely, and Lilith was placed on the defensive, forced to reveal her monstrous form to combat the powerful Wanderer, but was ultimately defeated. She kneeled now, before raising her hand toward the Wanderer, and chastising them for squandering the free will that she gave, wasting it on a crusade they did not understand. On the brink of death now, she expressed her frustration and disappointment, stating the Wanderer had chosen tyranny when she offered freedom, and there would be no victory without her. She cried tears of blood, before turning to stone on the petals beneath her. And with that, she crumbled to dust. The angel that shaped the world then turned his back on it, and the demon that in her own way fought for humanity's independence and supremacy were no more. But Sanctuary's story would continue on. Hi there, thanks for watching, and if you made it this far and enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment down below. It helps a lot. See you in the next video. Bye.